Credible Money Talks across Singapore, Indonesia, India, and Philippines. Credible Talks with credible analytics.
Hello, Money. Welcome to another episode of Credible Money Talks in 2026. In our last episode, we briefly discussed some success stories of current Indonesian government with regards to reforms in Pertamina, reforms in agribusiness, reforms in exports of commodities, and some reforms also being looked into with regards to collection of import duties and curtailing in illegal imports. Today, we have another interesting topic as Indonesia has embarked upon a very ambitious program to set up the Merah Putih Cooperative Society in Indonesia. The target is to set up 80,000 cooperative societies in Indonesia, which means effectively every village would have a participation in this cooperative society. Now, this we all know has been long overdue in Indonesia because Indonesian cooperative societies, what shall I say, far in between, sporadic at best, and not having any consistent existence in Indonesia. So the business environment in Indonesia in the last 30 to 40 years has been that of conglomeration and also driven by state-owned enterprises. So that has been the nature of the Indonesian business model. So now this initiative of the Merah Putih Cooperative Society is definitely long overdue and has to be supported and given all the assistance needed. So the government is planning to fund the cooperative society capital requirements from the state budget, and they are looking at coordinating between the ministries and local government institutions to ensure that these cooperative societies get a good head start. And they're also looking into food procurement, savings, loans, clinics, pharmaceuticals, cold storage, warehousing, logistics, etc. And with enough capital and embarking on sustainable programs, this could lead to some quick wins in the next 12 to 14 months. Because we need to understand that one of the major factor that the Indonesian farmer is facing is with that of the money lending operations, which have led them to become poor, and because they have no option other than that in the remote farms, they have been slaves to this system over a couple of generations now. So this will hopefully be a big step forward to release their shackles from this money lending schemes that they entangled themselves into. And hence, we hope that this program could fundamentally change their status, livelihood, and purchasing power going forward. So the budget is about 3 to 5 billion rupiah per cooperative society with a target of 80,000 cooperative societies, and this will be funded by the state budget, and they're looking at going into basic food, savings and loans, pharmacy, village clinics, cooperative cold storage, logistics, etc. So each business would be focused on obtaining income for the cooperative society and obtain good margins. This is possibly achievable because the government has ensured that they will get capital at a very subsidized interest rate. So give them a head start in trying to compete. With that keyword compete is where the issue comes in, because as I said earlier, Indonesia's economic model has been conglomeration and state-owned enterprises. Now, the sector of business that the cooperative society is trying to look into are possibly directly in line with the businesses that the conglomerates are also into in the last 30-40 years. So hence, there is significant concern. Would this initiative lead to war zone scenario between the Merah Putih Cooperative Society and the conglomerates, or are they going to be in synergy and create more value added for the Indonesian economy. So let's try to analyze this further. Indonesian conglomerates have definitely a diversified business line, and some famous names like Sinarmas Group, Salim Group, Jarum Group, etc. are all there as names, and they are focused on pulp, paper, agribusiness, property, finance, cigarettes, banking, automotive assembling, and some agribusiness, etc. But what we can see is that there is a difference in pattern with that of Indian conglomerates, for example, which have become powerhouses in heavy industry, energy, and healthcare, unlike that of the ones in Indonesia. So famous names like Tata, Reliance, Adani, Mahindra, Aditya Birla, Larsen Toubro, Godrej, Hinduja, etc. are all very much strong in engineering, heavy duty, heavy industries, and healthcare, etc. We also look at a similar pattern in South Korea. Samsung, Hyundai, and in SK Group, LG Group, etc. are all strong in heavy industry, automotive, electronics kind of businesses. And so we can distinctly see that there is a difference in the pattern. And interestingly, the pattern of businesses of the Indonesian conglomerates are similar to that of the conglomerates in the Philippines. So the business model in the Philippines have been very similar to the ones in Indonesia. So if you make a comparison between Indonesia, Philippines, India, South Korea, and list them out as heavy industries, energy, infrastructure, consumer, financial services and technology, property and real estate, we note a very interesting pattern that Indonesia and Philippines relatively are very small in composition to heavy industries versus that in India and South Korea. And we see also similar weakness in technology-based industries. So Indonesia and Philippines have very small proportion of conglomerates in technology versus that in India and South Korea especially is significantly high. And we also see another interesting pattern. The Indonesia and Philippines have a direction where Indonesian conglomerates have significant business in property and real estate, which is not the case in India and South Korea. So that is an interesting difference in pattern, which is very obvious. Now, with this comes the problem, because if Indonesian conglomerates are strong in consumer and retail and financial services, with initiation of this Merah Putih Cooperative Society in Indonesia, we would possibly see a conflict. So the zone of conflict is in consumer and retail and financial services, which account for about 44% of the business of conglomerates. And if the Merah Putih Cooperative Society goes forward into these sectors, we might see a definitely scenario where key players like Indomaret, which is a very big chain of stores in Indonesia, and then Transmart as well, and etc., will end up in a scenario where there could be a price war, because don't forget, the conglomerates have been in business for 30 to 40 years at least, and some have been even there for longer, and they know how to weather the storm. They have very efficient systems to compete, and so hence if a new player like Merah Putih comes in and they are not prepared for an immediate full force attack from the conglomerates, will they survive even the initial attack and sustain, is the question to be answered. Well, one point we have to note is that we cannot have a country as big as Indonesia without an existence of a sustained, significant contribution of cooperative society in the economic model. That is not a realistic approach to have a sustained growth in GDP for Indonesia. So this is definitely a point which will end up driving the Merah Putih Cooperative Society as definitely becoming the future backbone, which is grassroots driven to ensure the stability of the GDP growth in Indonesia, in the medium to long term business models. So hence, having said that, can the Merah Putih Cooperative Society immediately as efficient as the conglomerates to compete? Would they be able to have efficient supply chains, logistical efficiencies, etc., which the conglomerates have built over decades? So these will become issues, because if they are colliding with the same business line, then one or the other has to win and lose. And if it was a synergy of sorts, then that would be a different scenario where basically as long as they're not in each other's turf, then it's easy to find a solution, synergy in fact, and help each other out. Another issue is with regard to microfinance. A lot of the conglomerates are in microfinance, and the primary purpose of the Merah Putih Cooperative Society is to ensure that microfinance is efficiently spread out to the farmers, where in the past they have suffered and become slaves to the money lending businesses, and there is hope that the Merah Putih Cooperative Society would release them from their shackles and allow them to improve their state of being and purchasing power in the future. But at the same time, the competition, microfinance, the conglomerates have to be dealt with. So this would lead to another possible war on capital disbursement. And we need to also understand the farmers are also probably having current outstandings with these conglomerates, microfinance businesses. So if they don't have a capacity to settle it, they will not be allowed to participate in the Merah Putih Cooperative Society. That means, does the Merah Putih Cooperative Society have the capacity to take over these outstandings from these existing conglomerate microfinance businesses and allow the farmer to do business and move forward? So these are questions that will come up. So the retail sector and microfinance sectors will definitely, we believe, end up in a war zone, as both are targeting the same market with overlapping services. But on the other hand, definitely the Merah Putih Cooperative Society, not all about overlapping businesses with the conglomerates. There is also room for developing businesses from local products, from regional advantages for each cooperative society, and because conglomerates do not drive their businesses from local produce in each area, but rather they go for mass produced goods from large manufacturers and find a way to effectively distribute them efficiently across the country. And cooperative societies, on the other hand, would be able to hopefully develop products in each of these regions and distribute them directly there, and hence allow for a very low priced product without having logistical costs involved, and effectively compete with a varied business in each region with their specific advantages accordingly. And we also hope that Merah Putih Cooperative Society, because of its social mission, would be able to garner market share, because there could be some loyalty from customers knowing that they are actually participants rather than buyers transferring profits to a conglomerate. So this could be an advantage that the Merah Putih Cooperative Society can probably leverage itself on. So having said that, so there are opportunities on both sides, the Merah Putih Cooperative Society as well as conglomerates, to have their own businesses, but there is some overlap in the retail and the microfinance space, and we do not know how this will pan out for both. This definitely is a question to be answered. Now, if we even compare the process of setting up these cooperative societies, Indonesia has taken a top-down approach versus that in India, which has been a bottom-up approach. And we know India has been quite successful with cooperative societies. And can a top-down approach actually lead to success is another question to be answered. The reason we are saying that is that if you want a cooperative society to survive and sustain and thrive, the participants of the cooperative society should have interest to participate. Secondly, they must also have competencies built into them to participate, and there should be also good management to manage the cooperative societies, and effectively there should be also harmony between the participants to ensure smooth functioning of the cooperative societies to move forward. So all these are variables that need to be in place. With a top-down approach, would there be a possibility to manage these variables effectively is a question to be answered. So that's one. Number two, if you see the cooperative societies in India, they have also become actually a cooperative conglomerate. For example, in India, the sugar farmers own sugar factories, the IFFCO, for example, And Indonesia's cooperative society is still looking at very basic retail businesses, distribution at basically village level, and hence, is it really a potential that is significant, or is it just something just for the sake that it has to be done? We're moving forward into the Merah Putih Cooperative Society. The question needs to be answered again. So with that, we know that this is a good initiative if it succeeds, because the goals are noble, but the conglomerates have been in these businesses for a very long time. Whether the storm, will they be able to compete? So for a new business setup with these many challenges, the odds are against the Merah Putih Cooperative Society, in all fairness. So now, can all the participants overcome all these challenges and pass these hurdles and succeed? Number two, even if they do succeed, would it be a sustainable business model, or would it just be a one-time success? Because often one-time success can be achieved, but a sustained success may not be easy to achieve. So these are challenges that we see in this new initiative from the government, but we can learn from other business models. And first learning would be time is of essence. So if this has to be done within the next 12 to 14 months versus all the other cooperative societies have been built over years, is itself a challenge, one. And also managing these businesses and learning the curve of ups and downs in the business cycle, etc., would pose quite turbulent weather for the Merah Putih Cooperative Society. But we wish this cooperative society in Indonesia succeeds, because this would definitely become fundamental hallmark of success of the new government, wherein they would have created a solid backbone for the economy with participation from the entire country's farmers and regional players. And this, I think, is something that we will be watching very closely, and we hope good news is there around the corner for the Merah Putih Cooperative Society. With that, we say adios. Thank you. Until next time.